Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to Sage's Tabletop Table Talks. I'm Sage. This is my table, and I'm going to talk to you about tabletop role-playing games. So today's topic is something I find kind of interesting, and it's something that I really haven't found a game that does it right. Um, some games do it better than others, but generally speaking, it's hit health and healing in games. So generally speaking, games come in one of two categories. The first is characters have a pool of hit points. Games like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Unisystem, Call of Cthulhu, kind of mostly has this system wherein your character has a number, let's say 15. And they can take 15 damages before they are rendered defeated. Some games dead, some games dying, but they can. My cats. They can take so much before they end up going down. In that case, hit points tend to be a very vague idea. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later when we get into when I get into a little more meat. The other ones, games like Danger Patrol, Savage Worlds, and White Wolf games, storyteller games, have this like death spiral damage track where, generally speaking, hits don't always necessarily harm you, but when they do, you start taking bigger and bigger and bigger penalties. I think this is where Mutants and Masterminds has done it best, even though I think that there's even still some room in Mutants and Masterminds for some improvement. Mutants and Masterminds, you don't have a health track. If somebody attacks you, there's a damage rating, like let's say 12. And then you'll have a toughness rating, and you'll try to add, let's say, 3. So you would try to add 3, roll a d20 to your toughness, and try to beat that 15 damage. If you beat that 15 damage, sorry, my chair's kind of. If you beat that 15 damage, then you tank the hit. However you want to armor or blocking or whatever. If you fail, then you will take penalties based on how badly you failed. If you failed by like 1 to 5, now all of your defenses are -1 until you have a chance to recover. If you fail by like more than that, you might be stunned or staggered, and eventually you are unconscious. And this kind of thing is when your defenses keep dropping, hits 1 hit more often and 2 hit harder. And one of the things I like about that is your defense drops, but your attack power doesn't. So it's not like you're hitting less harder like you are in some games like Storyteller, where these penalties you're accrue to both health or accrue to both attack and defense. So basically, it very mimics a very cinematic fight, wherein two guys start the fight just bam, 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 and much like in superhero comics, you generally don't often see little nicks, cuts, bruises, bumps, thumps hinder a character's combat ability. It's not till they start taking real solid hits that their combat ability starts to suffer. So those -1s are just the character being slowly worn down until they're able to be taking hits that stagger or stun them, which would be where you see a character kind of suffering those penalties in movies. Like John Wick's limping would be him being like staggered or slowed. I don't remember what the exact status ailment is, but like moving at half speed. But so one of the things, and I've talked about this before, is this idea that hit points are actual damage, and they're not. And that kind of brings me to the point I have about the way healing works in games. So Gary Gygax said that hit points are not meat damage. They are not how much meat is being taken off your body. It's not how many cuts, bruises, broken bones, black eyes. That is a part of it, but that's not all of it. So then he turns around and makes it so you heal 1 hit point a day. Which I feel like if hit points is just mental fatigue and combat advantage, I feel like taking a rest should do more than 1 hit point a day. Like, a lot of games do have this where they take injuries, and these injuries take like weeks and weeks and weeks to heal, and like, and I get why kind of in Call of Cthulhu they do this, but it still makes for such terrible gameplay. So you take 5 points of damage and you're like 5 weeks in bed healing, which basically means that the game just stops for 5 weeks while a character heals. A lot of old games did this idea that a character would be in bed for like a month while they were healing their damage, and there'd be like this idea that the other players would go on adventures. I believe the game Prime Directive, where like if you took an injury, you were in the med bay, and for like 3 weeks. Which, first of all, it's Star Trek. Like, I know it's not as insane as some sci-fi, but you'd think they would have better medical technology, that getting shot in the arm once would take like months to heal. But the idea would be that you would be months, like a lot in this huge number of in-game time, where your player character would be in medbay while your rest of your party was having an adventure, which is insane. Why would any gaming group do that? Because like, you're basically just telling your friend to not come back, because after 3 sessions of you telling him not to come because his character's in medbay, he's just gonna lose interest and stop playing. That's just the truth. Maybe it was a different culture back in 1981, but I can't imagine like being told not to come to the next 2 months gaming sessions because my character is healing. That is such an insane idea. And there are still games today that release this. Games like Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition, which was released in 2000, you would recover 1 hit point per level. I believe it was 1 hit point per level plus Constitution modifier per day of rest. But like when characters have like 150 hit points and are healing 12, 13 a day, that's still a week for the character, which means that the game just stops for a week while that character builds his hit points back up. Modern Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and a lot of games kind of do this, where you just kind of heal to max between major story events, which it fixes that problem, but it creates this other problem wherein damage doesn't feel tense anymore. Like, if I've got 75 hit points and I take 60 hit points in a fight, you know what, I got 15 hit points. That meme of 1 hit point means I'm still standing. But that is absolutely true, because all I'm going to do is go home. All we're going to do now is go home, take a rest, and I'm back up to full. And then you incorporate Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition's hit dice, wherein on a short rest you can just heal your, hit die, or, whatever die you roll for hit points between combat encounters, which isn't like some absolutely absurd amount, especially at higher levels, but it's like, and then, you incorporate magical healing and things like that. So, like, this idea of, like, long-term, I don't know what the solution is, because on the one hand, having a character just injured for the entire session, for the entire campaign, sucks. But on the other hand, so many of these games make damage into such a non-factor that taking 30 points of damage no longer feels threatening like it used to. It feels like, oh, okay, well, hey, cleric, patch me up enough to get through this fight and we'll be good. So I don't really know how to solve that problem. Now, some games will use a hit point tracker. I just noticed. I just noticed the cat, dog man characters behind me. But anyway, sorry. Some characters have a this like Damage tracker. Big one I can think of is storyteller, which, jeez, don't even get me started on storyteller. I did a review of Scion a long time ago, and I might re-review Scion now that I've kind of gotten better at this, I guess. Um, but one of the things about the game, when you take damage, is you take penalties and when you take damage. So you lose 2 hit points, and now everything you roll is at a -2. What does that mean? That means that this enemy who's beating you is going to keep beating you because you're in this death spiral. Now you can shift that weight back, and there are certainly ways to heal in the game, but you're still the first one to get damage is already on the back foot, which, yes, I guess makes sense in a realistic fight, because realistically in a fight, if you're the first one to be hit, taken down, whatever, you fight on the back foot. It just makes for very unsatisfying gameplay to know that when you take 3 damage, you might as well be at 0 health for, as good as you're going to be. I think that penalties to defense might be better, like Mutants and Masterminds does, but it still creates this kind of death spiral. But at least you can still fight at the same level of efficacy that you were able to before. Now there's like healing abilities and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, and I love Battletech. I love you, MechWarrior. I love your world. If you guys ever get a chance, look up the Battle of Tuckid. I can't remember the name of the guy. Maybe Josh can come in the comments and reply, but he does a perfect summary of the Battle of Tuckid in MechWarrior and how like amazing and awesome it is. Love the lore. I love all that stuff about it. And y'all should support the people who create MechWarrior, because like they're one of the very few actual ethical game companies out there. They're very much like, hey, if you guys want to play MechWarrior, here's the rules for free. Use whatever you can use to do it. And if you want to buy our figures, then by all means, buy our figures. But they're, unlike a game like 40K, they're not like choking you out of money. But I guess, but they have the worst health system I have ever had. And I have never played a game that I haven't. This has always been, even in games I enjoy like BattleTech, the thing that I absolutely despise, and that is hit locations. Do not put hit locations in your game. They are never fun, never. If you think they're fun, you're lying to yourself because you like that game. It is a terrible. So if you give the players the option to do hit locations, they're just gonna call headshots. They're going to play my strategy in Fallout, which is just VATS heads until the opponent dies. I mean, that's generally speaking what players are going to do, is because almost in all these games, head have the least amount of hit points and 0 head is instant death. Why wouldn't you? Even if you put a 2-hit penalty, if I get hit in the stomach 3 times, but if you hit me in the stomach 3 times, or if you hit me 3 times and I hit you 1 time, but this 1 time I hit you is an insta-kill, and those 3 hits to the stomach only take me to half, my headshot is still a more viable option. And of course, generally speaking, these have the same issue I have with the death spiral of, well, I hit you in the hand, then now you're at a huge penalty to fight me. I'm like, okay, well, I might as well be dead, because I just can't fight you anymore. I just can't hit you. I'm now just gonna, because I only have a 1 in 20 chance of hitting you no matter what, I'm just gonna spam headshots on the hope I roll a 20. That was one of the things in Know Your Role. One of the players ended up doing was, he ended up getting hit so bad that he was at like a -12, and the other character was at like a -2, so he was just like, I'm just gonna spam the biggest pile drivers I can spam, because I can only hit you on a 20 anyway, so who fucking cares, right? So I'm just gonna spam pile drivers this rest of this fight, which sounds like an AEW match if we're being honest. Like, Oh, what's this dude doing? He's just doing stuff, and the other guy's just going for his finisher over and over and over and over and over again, hitting his finisher over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But like a lot of these games, and a lot of them have random hit locations, which is so infuriating. Don't ever do this. If you're a game designer, it is never fun. Never, 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 never fucking fun to have to roll randomly in a hit location. Because what will end up happening is you'll hit a body part 3 times, bring it almost to the brink of zero, destruction, death, whatever, and then your next attack, it'll be a huge attack, a big powerful attack, something with a lot of bite to it, and you end up hitting another body part, and effectively just doing nothing again. Yeah, maybe start work, but now, okay, I hit you in the I hit you 3 times in the left arm, and now I hit you in the right leg. So, I mean, I've effectively done nothing, and my next attack's probably not going to hit you on the right leg again. And even if it does, it's going to take another attack or 2 before it actually matters. And by then, just by the little odds, I'm going to hit you in the body, I'm going to hit you in the shoulder, you know, whatever. It's just always bad. Scion 2nd Edition does something interesting, and I haven't played Scion 2nd Edition yet. And I'm not going to lie, I don't really have a lot of desire to, just because the first storyteller system I played Scion a little bit of VTM. It was so bad, like the mechanics were so bad that I very much turned off the system, and there's a lot of stuff in Scion 2nd Edition that just didn't. They have an interesting thing where if you take a hit, if you do enough damage to force this on an opponent, you don't just deal a point of damage, or you don't just give them that -2. You do an actual wound to them, and then you describe what that wound is. So like you can say, oh, okay, you did 3 damage to the opponent. What did you do? Like, okay, well, while we were our swords were clashed, I noticed an opening and I kicked them in the leg and dislocated their knee. So now they're minus speed. Or, you know, I headbutted them and now their eyes are bloody, so they have a little less accuracy. However you want to do it. I'm not sure how that would work in real life, because I feel like much like the issues I had with the death spiral and hit locations, players are just going to cheese the most optimal solution. Like, I blind them, I blind them, I blind them, I blind them. And I know there's this big argument about, well, if players are doing that, there's a problem. But here's the thing. As a player, I'm fighting this enemy. I want to win this fight. I want to defeat this enemy. Why would I not attempt to do what is the most efficient way to defeat this enemy in this situation? In a real fight, if an opponent gives you an eye as an opening, like I'm talking about life or death, like you're in a fight and this dude's trying to kill you, and your only option is to like fuck him up back. Be like, you know, his eyes open, you know, his eyes are, and you're right there, you can gouge his eyes. You're not gonna be like, well, I don't want to gouge his eyes because I gouged the last, because, you know, you're an adventurer, you're fighting regularly. I gouged the last 2 guys' eyes, and even though it would win, it would just make a really boring fight too. No, you're gonna do what's gonna win the fight. Like, so I had an idea where you would have a chart, and you would roll randomly on this wound chart. I'm not sure how well it would work. I'd have to actually play test it. It's kind of have a game where that's part of it. Still hammering out a lot of bugs in the game, a lot of just like creation details. But I wonder if like having a thing where you get shot. Okay, so you've been shot, and now you have to see what the beam weapon does to you. So you roll a d20, and you'll have a chart. These are my wounds, you know. Maybe it hit me in my left shoulder and now my accuracy is dropped. Or it hit me in my leg and now my speed has been reduced. Or maybe it's a grazing wound and it didn't actually do anything. Well, the idea I'd have would be you'd have like a 20-point hit chart, a 20-point hit chart. And when you take a damage, you would roll to damage and mark it off. And if you rolled that same zone, it would push it up to 20. Maybe 21 would be unconscious, so you'd have to at least get 20. But that might make fights take too long. And maybe I could reduce it to a D12. But that's kind of like my solution to hit locations, because hit locations are just add-on fun mechanic. And don't tell me they are fun, because go ahead, tell me why hit locations are fun. Tell me why peppering shots all over an opponent's body or spamming headshots is a fun mechanic. Tell me why that's enjoyable to you as a player. I'd be really interested, very, very interested to hear why anyone thinks that hit locations enrich gaming experience, because I don't see it. Never played a game with hit locations that did that. But back kind of on the idea of healing and recovery times, I don't know what the proper balance with healing and damage would be. Of course, the first thing that anyone would do is, if you have a cleric or medic or doc, whatever you want to call them, somebody with a healing mechanic, is, especially if it didn't actually cost resources to do. Okay, so we're gonna rest and once again, you have a cleric, a healer, a priest in. This is kind of one of the problems I have with the Priest of Light in Palladium, is they can do this between battles. Okay, who's down hit points? Heal 2d4, heal 2d4, heal 2d4, heal 2d4. Okay, heal 2d4, heal 2d. Okay, everybody at full. We had a game where we were fairly low levels, but our DM gave us something called Blue Crystal Staff. Blue Crystal Staff. It was 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. And it let you cast a spell, cure minor wounds at will. So how it worked in this game, because I know a lot of you guys haven't experienced this particular ability. So you did not have infinite cantrips in 3rd edition. You had a number of cantrips per day. So you would have 4 cantrips per day. What that meant was you could have a spell called Cure Minor Wounds. It was a step down from Cure Light Wounds. Cure Light Wounds cured 1d8 plus ability modifier damage. Yeah, 1d8 plus, was it 1d8 plus 1? It's been a while. But let's say 1d8 damage. You cured 1d8 damage. However, Cure Minor Wounds cured 1 damage. And realistically, it was designed to do the same thing the Stabilize spell does. If somebody goes down, you can, last minute, if you have to, cast Stabilize, because if you gained any magical healing, you were stabilized. You were back up. You were no longer dying. And how it worked in 3rd edition was, if you were at if you're at negative hit points, you went negative 1 hit points. And every turn, you lost 1 hit point until you reached negative 10, where you died. So if your player was at negative 5 hit points, any magic healing whatsoever, no matter how much, brought them to 1 hit point. Cure minor wounds. Cured 1 hit point. So this blue crystal staff could do it at will. Wasn't great in combat, but what it meant was every single encounter we had, our cleric would just stand there and go, okay, who needs healing? Okay, you need 7 hit points. Bap, 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 bap. You need 12. Bap, 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 bap. You need 3. Bap, bap, bap. So damage between encounters was negligible. If an encounter didn't drop someone to 0 hit points, it might as well have not even happened. Which is a lot of how I feel about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is characters have so many hit points and so many ways to heal that damage feels very negligible in a lot of situations. And I'm sure people out there gonna be like, no, 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 I worried. Okay, I believe you. I mean, I've never felt stressed about my hit points in 5th edition. I get more stressed out about the status ailments than I do. And if that's the way you want to design a game, fine. Design it that way. Because D&D 5th edition isn't designed that way. It's just the game very much takes its kid gloves off for player characters. Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition had a lot of this too. That just came from the vast number of hit points that characters would get and the little tiny damage that they did. It's like, okay, this enemy just hit you with this big attack and did 3d6 damage to you. So you did 10 damage. Cool, I have 199 hit points. And that was his daily attack. Well, enemies didn't really have daily attack. He's going to recharge that on a 6, on a roll of a d6. A 1 in 6 chance of being able to use that again this encounter. Not really super worried about it. Next thing he's going to do is he's going to do an attack that does 1d8 plus 4 damage. Like, I really don't care. Like, it is just now a matter of his 10 damage versus my 12 damage, his 7 damage, his 9 damage, his 5 damage versus my 12, my 13 damage. Who's going to wear the other one down faster? And I got 4 buddies. So yeah, like, okay, sure, you might do 72 points of damage, and that might suck, but you can only do that once ever, and I've still got 112 hit points left from that attack. The fuck do I care? Like, honestly, the fuck do I care? Of course, bosses have the same problem. Yeah, I just did 44 points of damage, which means nothing to a boss with 530 health. So games the hit points didn't feel like this epic thing that you were losing, you were on the verge of ending. They felt like a hindrance to the gameplay. They felt like a drag on the system. And yeah, like I said, so it's just so hard because, like, and I guess honestly a lot of it just has to do with the way these games handle combat. Either combat feels so tense that even if you want to get into a fight, like, once again, Call of Cthulhu, and I know this is the point of Call of Cthulhu, but if 4 cultists are shooting, if you're at a shootout, and 4 cultists are, you know, spraying you with bullets, then you're fucked, but it a lot of times will feel just, like, shitty, because it feels like, alright, well, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to have to roll up a new character anyway. And that's not tense, that's just defeated. Like, people talk about Call of Cthulhu as a horror game, and in some ways it is, but in a lot of ways, to me, it just feels defeatist. Like, I don't know, to me, and as somebody who's like a huge horror movie fan, I find horror games uninteresting. I find them not good, not fun. And generally it's just because if I'm engaging in this system of combat or exploration or whatever, and then my character can just die at a moment. It's kind of one of the reasons I actually don't really care for Dark Souls. It's like, oh, your character just died. I'm like, oh boy, I gotta go through all this shit again. Oh, your character died in Call of Cthulhu. Oh boy, I gotta roll up a new character. Oh, here comes Steve number 2. Oh, what is he? Well, he's like Steve number 1, but has a little less EDU and a little more STR. That's how he rolled up. Okay, but you're basically, yeah, of course I'm the same character because the party needs a fucking detective character. So I build another detective character. Like, because generally speaking, people in a game tape, well, one of the things is you're going to build a character that you want to play. I understand that if you have playing a game like All Flesh Must Be Eaten or Call of Cthulhu, you are in the understanding that your character might die. They're fatal games. They're not fatal. Fatal's a different game. And as always, a reminder, if we get, I think it's 10,000 subscribers on this channel, we will build characters, and actually play around a session of Fatal. So far, as far as I can tell, no one has actually done this. So hit that subscribe button so I actually force my loser friends to play Fatal. Anyway. Yes, these games are meant to be highly fatal. But at the same time, you're playing a character you want to play. So I'm playing a detective because I want to play a detective. So when that detective dies, unless you're like really thinking 6 characters ahead, which I'm not. Some players might be, I'm not. I'm just going to build a very similar character. Also, you consider party dynamics. A character is going to be one the group needs. Okay, hey, my friend is trying to start an AFMBE, All Flesh Must Be Eaten game, and I played kind of a brawlery character because we have a scientist and we have somebody with medical training and we have a gunner. Having a melee type character isn't a bad idea. Having a melee type character is probably a bad idea in a zombie game, but I'm playing kind of generally a tougher, stronger, get in there type character. If I die, well, we already have a scientist, we have a hacker, we have a medic, and we have a soldier. What am I going to play? Another medic? Another hacker? Like, I'm just going to be probably a similar character to the one I have now, because if I'm not, I'm just doubling down on a role the group already has and doesn't need me for. So, and that's kind of the problem I have with a lot of these highly fatal type games, is that this idea of, well, you're going to have to, your character could very easily die. I'm like, cool, I'm going to build another very similar character when he dies. Because that's the party dynamic. My character's a mall ninja, so if I die, I probably won't build another exact mall ninja, but I'll probably build another kind of physical type character. And that's really kind of the thing. In some games, it's not nearly as big of a deal to have like 2 characters kind of fit the same role. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like a good party will build a good gaming group will build a party that interact with each other. You don't need 3 barbarians in a D&D party. You don't need 4 street samurai in a Shadowrun party. You don't need 4 commandos in a Danger Patrol party. There's too much redundancy that they're all just going to be falling over each other to do their job. If you got 3 hackers, all that's going to happen is the one that happens to have the highest hacking will try first, then the next one, then the next one. That's all your group's gonna have. So your two that happen to be slightly less than the first, they're just there as backup rolls, like literally rolls, in order to, in case the first succeeds, or in case the first fails. And if they succeed, you just aren't doing anything that time around. So if a character dies, you're going to rebuild a similar character. I mean, I don't know how to solve this problem. Palladium has a very weird. I want to just talk about this for a minute because Rifts has crazy weird hit point rules. So how you work is you have what's called SDC, Structural Damage Capacity. When you take damage, you take it from your SDC. Armor has SDC. So if somebody hits your armor loses their hit points. And I don't care for the system with armor breakage. It's a lot of bookkeeping that I don't think needs to be done. Once your SDC is depleted, you will take hit point damage. So it's kind of this idea of like your SDC is like the dusting yourself off, kind of, and objects have SDC. So when you shoot a door until there's so many bullet holes and it no longer functions as a door. What does that mean? It depends. Whether it's you shoot enough that there's enough holes that you can just see through it now, reach around, open it from the other side, however it works. But it doesn't mean the door is all atomized. It just means the door is no longer a door. Whatever that means to you in that situation. Living creatures have hit points, and you gain 1d6 around. And I don't like that because I don't like the idea that you constantly build more meat as you go. A little bit, yeah, but you're really not like swelling up every time you gain power. Like, that's not really how it works. And your SDC is kind of locked at first level. It depends on what kind of character you've built. But you have like this like fatigue track and then a damage track. Savage Worlds is something kind of where you have wounds and you have like stun hits. A number of games I've seen. Hero System uses stun damage and body damage. Stun damage is like nicks, cuts, fatigue. Body damage is actual like physical damage to your body. I don't really care for that. It feels like extra bookkeeping. Hit points kind of suck as it is. So having 2 hit points just means bookkeeping that isn't really necessary. I guess it kind of quells the argument of, is hit points meat? It's not. It's never been meat. To use the cow analogy again, cows have 15 hit points in D&D. A level 2 fighter does not have more meat than a cow. They just don't. But I've never really been. It just feels like extra bookkeeping to me. And of course, almost every game I've seen that does that has this idea of like, okay, your stun damage will heal in a couple of days. Your body damage heals in months. Once again, you're either going to wait a month to do anything, or that player who took one bad hit is going to be down near death the rest of the campaign, because the DM isn't going to give them time to build that body point back up. Those body points back up. You take, let's say you got 20 body points, 20 meat damage. You take 15 meat, so it'll take 15 weeks to build that back up. So DM gives you 2 weeks. So you went from 5 meat to 7 meat, and now you're getting into another encounter. So now your character, who might be a tankish character, really doesn't have much of a choice. He is going to have to stay behind and cower behind rocks, completely out of character, or he's going to die. Because the DM decided not to give him enough time to restore his meat. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's this is more just kind of a rambly rant about a topic I find as somebody who is trying to design games and somebody who analyzes games from a perspective. I have yet to really see this done right ever. I've seen it done wrong. I've seen it done disastrously wrong. The amount of damage a mech takes in MechWarrior versus the amount of damage dealt and its random hit locations, mech fights can be some of the most boring battles in the MechWarrior RPG. The amount of hit points that 4th edition character, 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons characters have compared to damage output makes fights these endless, especially mid-level, endless slogs of just picking at each other. Exalted have these things called perfect defenses, where if somebody attacks you, and there's little fiddly bits, but generally speaking, somebody attacks you, you have what are called motes of essence, and it's mana, it's your MP. If somebody attacks you, you activate your perfect defense, and they attack auto misses. You have perfect attacks, which function similarly. You activate it, you burn up your essence, and then that attack automatically hits unless the target uses a perfect defense. What this means is fights can just be calculated by, okay, every turn I'm spending this much essence, every turn you're spending this much essence. Who's going to run out of essence first? Me? Okay, I lose this fight. That's kind of just how it goes in Exalted. Very weird, but... And like I said, it uses the White Wolf. Everybody has so many blocks of health, and when you take damage, you mark them off, and your dice pools get smaller. Because fucking White Wolf systems use dice pools, which I'm getting to that later, but that's just kind of how it goes. But anyway, that's really all I have to say on the matter now. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.